The War for Mansoul by John Bunyan, as told by Ethel Barrett. Copyright 1998, Christian Light Publications Incorporated, Harrisonburg, Virginia. The Politics of Diabolus. Things did go comfortably from bad to worse, running more or less on their own momentum now that Diabolus had set up the machinery. After he had satisfied himself that only the officials who would serve his ends were in power, he was free to turn his mind to other projects. His hours in his office were full. There was no end of things to do. Mopping up operations. Officials and underlings streamed through his office endlessly. "Master?" "Yes, yes." "Mr. No Truth to see you." "Oh, yes, I sent for him. Have him come in." And he would chortle and check his cigar box and seat his guests and rub his hands and talk if the guest were a Mansoulian. But he would get right down to business if the guest were one of his own. "Mr. No Truth, there's a seal on the castle gates." "Yes, sire, the seal of Never mind that. You know I cannot bear the mention of his name." "I'm sorry, sire." "Anyhow, the seal of... It makes me nervous." "I understand." "You understand. I didn't call you here to take up my time with sympathy. Do something about it." "Oh, what would you have me do, sire?" "Deface it, distort it, dismantle it." "My pleasure, sire. I'll do it at once." "Besides, it is more fitting that my seal be put there." "Of course, sire. I was just about to mention it." "And No Truth?" "Yes, sire. There is another seal of just like it down in the market square. Can you take care of that one, too?" "My pleasure." And so things went. Symbols, seals, laws, and statutes were either destroyed, twisted, or touched up to suit the new government. But the work was never done. For it is one thing to take a town, and quite another thing to keep it. Some of the projects were on a more gigantic scale. Diabolus would chortle and fuss and argue and turn with his engineers, wanting to know every detail. "Are these the latest blueprints?" "Yes, sire." "This fort is to be built next to the eye gate, a most strategic spot, both to command the town and to keep light from getting in. I'm going to call it the Hold of Defiance. Good name, eh?" "Oh, yes, sire." "And I'm going to commission Mr. Spite God to command it. He'll watch over it with diligence, I'm sure. Good man." There were other forts, and Diabolus was happy. He hummed and bustled and gawked, sidewalks superintending while they were being built. One could find him almost any afternoon snooping about one or another. There was Midnight Hold, built next to the castle of the ex-mayor, Lord Understanding, to keep Mansoulians from discovering what fools they were. When it was finished and a commander was needed, Mr. Love-No-Light was just the man for the job. And there was Diabolus's favorite, built right in the market square for all to see. He called it Sweet Sinhold and commissioned Mr. Loveflesh to command it. That was the last major project for the present, and after it was finished, Diabolus went back to his castle to muse over what he had done and to gloat. Indeed, he had plenty to gloat over. He had taken Mansoul, lock, stock, and barrel, settled himself and his army within, put down old officers, set up new ones, defaced the great seal of Shaddai, set up his own, spoiled old law books, promoted his own lies, made new magistrates, set up new aldermen, built new forts, and manned them. "Why, it's practically foolproof," he said. "I haven't left a loophole, not one." Whereupon he crouched uncomfortably in one of his favorite positions and dreamed him a dream of power and more power. And that's the way he was when the awful news reached him. What Diabolus hadn't known was that, even as the ear gate of Mansoul was being thrown open on that fateful day, a messenger was on his way to the far country of the great King Shaddai to tell him that Mansoul had fallen. In fact, had delivered itself into enemy hands. And that evening, as Diabolus was poring over plans for remodeling, that same messenger was standing before the great king and his son in open court, with all the high lords, captains, and nobles there to hear. The messenger's report was faithful in announcing that, item, Diabolus had come upon Mansoul with craft, blandishment, subtlety, lies, and guile, and item, he had teacherously slain the right noble Captain Resistance as he stood upon the wall, and item, that Lord Innocency had fallen down dead with a sinking spell, some say with grief. And item, that valet Ilpaz had made a short oration to the townsmen in behalf of his master Diabolus. And item, the simple town, believing that what was said was true, had with one consent opened Eargate and let the Vandals in. And item, Diabolus had stripped Lord Mayor Understanding and Mr. Conscience, the town recorder, of all their powers and all their rights. And item, Lord Wilby-Will had turned traitor and pledged allegiance to the renegade giant and was granted great powers that he was using to do mischief. And item, the new mayor and recorder were Lord Lustings and Mr. Forgetgood. And item, Diabolus had built several strong towers, forts, and strongholds to fortify Mansoul against Shaddai's influence. And item, the list of aldermen and burgesses was scandalous, and so on, all of it. And the bad news, well, it jolted Diabolus right out of his favorite position. "What did you say?" he asked one of his intelligence officers as he was uncrouching himself. "The account of all your doings was delivered in open court," said the briefing officer. "The king and his son, Emmanuel, and the high lords and chief captains and nobles were all present." Yes, I know all that. There was sorrow and grief to think that Mansoul was lost. Yes, other, get to the other. King Shaddai and his son Prince Emmanuel foresaw all this when they first made the universe. Yes, get on. They planned that in a fixed time Prince Emmanuel would pay for Mansoul's rebellion by his own death. And that Shaddai would raise him from the dead. Diabolus hissed and rocked his head back and forth in his hands. There was a long silence. Finally he said, "Go on, we may as well have it all." "It has already been done. Mansoul's redeemed, bought, and paid for." "That's what I thought you said," Diabolus said wearily, "but I didn't believe it." "Now, have you repeated everything? Is there more?" "There is more." Diabolus's eyes grew bright like burning coals, stirred up and glowing. "Say on." "They have drawn up a record telling of all these things," said the intelligence officer quickly, backing away, "under the supervision of the Lord High Secretary in Shaddai's court. It's to be published. It's called the Word of Shaddai, the Bible. And that's not all. All, then, the rest of it, quickly. Emmanuel intends to make war on you, even now while you're still here, and take the town of Mansoul back and live in it." Diabolus flew into action. He pressed desk buzzers and pulled bell cords and had his staff getting stuck in doorways attempting to carry out his orders. "Where's Apollyon?" "He was going on liberty, sire. Cancel it." "But Beelzebub was to cover for him, sire, and cancel it. Cancel all liberties." "Yes, sire." "Our enemy slumbers not, neither shall we." "No, sire." "Put all my warlords on alert. They're to stand by, on call." "Yes, sire." And all through the forenoon Diabolus' voice voicing through the castle. "Get some poster printed giving the townspeople new liberties, permission to do as they please, the worse the better. Let down the censorship. Anything goes, in literature, in songs, and plays, everything, anything. That'll keep them busy for a while. Ought to weaken them too. And perhaps it will convince Prince Emmanuel that they're not worth saving. Somebody get in touch with Mr. Forgetgood. I want Conscience to have a sleeping pill. Call for a new vote of confidence. We'll have parades and music and speeches and get them all whipped up, and then I'll ask for a new pledge of allegiance. Send me Wilby-Will. I'll handle him. He may be dangerous. I'll have to butter him up a bit. He's the only one who... Oh, it's you, Apollyon. About time you came." "I heard about the emergency, sire. Came as soon as I could. The others are on their way." "We must keep the news from getting in, Apollyon." "What if it does? Some of it is bound to trickle in." "Twist it. The only thing to do. Twist it. Tell them Emmanuel is coming to destroy instead of to save. Tell them they'll lose their liberty. You have to know how to handle these things with finesse. Will is the only one... You are the master of the spurious, sire." "Yes, that's why I'm king of Mansoul. Will is the only one who can turn the tide." Who, sire?" "Wilby-Will." Diabolus turned to an underling. "Let me know when Wilby-Will arrives." Wilby-Will has arrived, sire. He is waiting in your anteroom now." "Good. Show him in. And get me a ghostwriter to write me a speech. I'm going to address the people of Mansoul in the market square." Apollyon started for a side door. "All of you stand by. Tell the others," said Diabolus after him. we have one thing in our favor, and that is that man's soul still has free will." They stared at each other for a long moment. "Close the door after you," said Diabolus finally.